Hi, Elena is here, and today I'm honored to speak with Letty Ferrer and Teresa Teuscher, a daughter and a granddaughter of legendary Broadway star Uta Hagen. She was an educator and actress. Welcome, Letty and Teresa.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Sure, absolutely. And we have this chat because of upcoming 50th anniversary of the book Respect for Acting, expanded edition, written by Uta Hagen. Could you tell me more about this book and about the venue, the dates of the event, and more?
We don't have a venue currently at the moment. There is some conversation about an event happening, but that's still in the works. But the book, it's the 50th anniversary of my grandmother and her writing of Respect for Acting. And as you said, this is an expanded version, and it is, so what that means is that there's pieces of other books that she has written and that other people have written that are included in this to give you a bigger picture of who she was and her life. That's part of the expanded version, and that is on you can get it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I believe it's available in April, sometime next month. I don't have, is it April 25th?
That's when I think it goes to print, but when it comes out in Barnes and Nobles and I believe the Drama Bookstore is sometime in May. And that's when the so-called event will happen. We don't have those dates yet.
So
and people can pre-order. If I'm
yeah,
correct.
You can pre-order it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, the expanded version.
Sounds great. And I'll follow up with you later, maybe next month, regarding the venue and the dates for the event in May, which might happen in May. So once you know the dates, also let me know. And wonderful. I can't wait for this book to be out and published, and I will be happy to pre-order my copy as well. So because I am. Say it again.
I was going to say you can find them all there's the utahagen.com page. But I've also created, we have an Instagram page, and it's Uta Hagen Family, and all the links are there with all the books that she has written that are currently published. And there's also some fun merchandise there as well. But all the links for those things, including also a podcast that my mom has done, are listed there as well.
Great. And I'll include all those links at the end of this video, so people can have them on one page and use them.
Respect is in English, Japanese, Italian, Polish, German, Spanish, Portuguese, and I think it was also done in Chinese, because when they did the 100th anniversary, it was a big celebration, and the Lincoln Center Library did a exhibition on her, and they had the book. And I think they had a picture of students in China with the book.
Amazing. So so people can get the book in a few languages, and in English and as well in their native language. Amazing. What do you think? Will it be translated to Russian at some point?
What happens is if somebody wants to translate it into Russian, I think they have to have a translator, and they also have to have somebody who wants to publish it. Then those people write our agent, whose name is the Barbara Hoganson Agency, and Barbara's agency will give them a release, so then they can translate it into Russian.
Yeah, anybody that wants to have any translation or use any piece of my grandmother's books has to go through the agent first, and then that's the first step, to go through her.
To go through Barbara Hoganson, to say, I have a translator, I have a publisher, we would like to do this. these are our people. Barbara will see that in writing and then proceed to send them documentation of what they have to sign to send back here, and then she will send it saying, okay, you can go forward.
Great. Good to know the process. How
Yeah.
does it work? And tell us more about her award-winning work and the favorite roles you admired your mother and grandmother for.
My mom grew up with it, so you can dive in on this one.
How do I say this? Okay.
Say it nicely.
I'm trying. All of the roles were very diverse. One very funny story, which I think you and your, what's the word, readers, no, listeners would enjoy, was when she had she had been able to study and work with an incredible woman who was not only an actress, but a director and God knows what else, by the name of Eva Le Gallienne. She had been, come in on this with me because I always get this mixed up. She had been to Europe and studied at the Royal Academy. After 6 months, she came back. And then she, at one point, wrote Miss Le Gallienne and said, I would love to audition for you. So sometime later, Miss Le Gallienne said, please come. So she comes, she auditions, she goes back. 6 months later after that, Miss Le Gallienne writes her and says, I would love for you to come be a part of my company and play a character of Ophelia in the play Hamlet, which Miss Le Gallienne played Hamlet. She finishes playing Hamlet, comes back to New York, and then how this came about, I don't know, but she auditioned for two incredible theater personalities by the name of Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne, who were big shots. So she comes in and she's so nervous. She learned the whole last act of the play and recites the lines. Yeah, thank you very much. And he says, thank you. And she leaves. It's like, okay, it's done. All of a sudden, Mr. Lunt calls her and says, Miss Hagen, could we do this again? And I will play the scene with you. So she said, oh, all right. She plays the scene with Mr. Lunt, got the part, and then they worked together for a long time until she met my father, and then they parted, but later in life they got together. So that was one thing that she absolutely adored, was playing with the Lunts in Nina and the Seagull. Then she did Othello by Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, with a woman by the name, who also knew Miss Le Gallienne, by the name of Margaret Webster. And this was with the wonderful pre-civil rights movement man by the name of Paul Robeson, who kept me on a soapbox, and I go, and Teresa says, fine, Mom, okay, relax, because I can go on and on about Paul. Anyway, it was the first time that a black man appeared with a white woman and kissed a white woman on stage, and that was meh. That was one of her favorite things. Then there was stuff that she did when I was little, which I sort of remember, but I don't remember. And then I remember her doing Country Girl with a man by the name of Paul Kelly. And she also, prior to Country Girl, she did George Bernard Shaw's St. Joan. And Miss Webster, who had directed her in Othello, came and directed St. Joan. And she was incredible in that. She really was incredible in that. Then she did some more shows.
Did she get the Tony for Country Girl or St. Joan?
Country Girl, definitely.
So it was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Country Girl, and the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Would you show us the awards?
So this is
Kenzie.
This is the Lifetime Achievement Award. She got this when she was 80 years old. And the other two are just coins, so they're not in the stand. That's how they used to make them originally. And on the back of this one, it's got the comedy tragedy. And then on the back it says, present the American Theater Wing's Tony Award to Special Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Theater, Uta Hagen, June 6, 1999. So
Great.
one of the many awards that she had received. And I thought this was the last one, but the last award that she did receive was her National Endowment of the Arts Award, which she got at the White House. W.
Amazing.
So, and she had already had the stroke at that time. And I think I've posted a picture of her with Smokey Robinson on Instagram in the wheelchair. But that was the official last award that she got. But she received 3 Tonys, and it was, what was it?
It was Virginia Woolf, Country Girl, and I don't know what.
And the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah. But I
Right.
know Teresa gets very embarrassed, but I love telling this story. She gets the invite to Washington for Life Achievement.
And we're jumping over there now? Okay.
Yeah, we're jumping up.
I thought we were still talking about Paul, and you were going to embarrass me with that. So
No,
I didn't know what you were talking
I've never.
about.
So, now we're talking
I
about-
love to hear the story now.
Okay, so now we're back at the White.
We're
okay,
back
we're
at the White House. 'Cause she broke up the
Now
White-
I want a story because
So she's in the hospital, and we have the answering machine, and I call them back. We have to talk to Miss Hagen. You can't, because I wasn't supposed to say anything. So finally I said, well, wait a minute, Mom, they want, yes. So I call the woman back, yes. So then Teresa's living in Germany.
Yeah, I was,
And
yeah.
so I get in touch with her and say, your grandma's going to be in Germany. Your grandma's going to be in DC getting an award. Would you like to come? No, I can honor her here. I don't need to come to New York. So I made up an excuse saying that Teresa couldn't come because of her job, right? So I said, you want me to send her an invite? Absolutely. I sent the invite. She calls me and said, wait a second. You didn't tell me this was going to be at the White House. I'm thinking, what? So then she says, I said to her, she says, I want to come. I said, well, let me see if so I finally, and she's calling I said, Teresa, if you get it, I'll let you know. I call her back. So I said, okay, Teresa, I'll see you tomorrow night or in 2 nights, whatever it was, in DC. And she said, well, I'll see if I can get a flight. I said, you see if you can get a flight, excuse me, after everybody in their neighbor has done this, right? Because she had to get clearance and all this other nonsense. I said, I will see you. And she went, okay.
I still have the invitation.
so you did make it.
I went.
Oh, you made it. Oh, great. And you have this on Instagram, right?
This picture's on Instagram, and this was, she's sitting in her wheelchair, and she's got her award, and my mom and I are right beside her, and then George W. is there. And
he was so nice. He was. It wasn't what you saw on the news. He really was totally down to earth. And the thing that was heartbreaking was after giving these awards, he 2 hours later had to turn and go and tell the world that we were going into war. I thought, whoa, my God.
It's part of the job.
It's like, whoa, but he was such a nice human being, and it was so cute. We've got pictures of Teresa wheeling, because when they show the White House, it's the front of the building with the pillars and all of that, right? So we have pictures of Teresa pushing her up, getting ready to go into the White House.
Yeah, but that's not what the entrance, the vision that you see is not where we came in. We came in a separate way.
No, but you do see that entrance.
No.
Okay, well, I thought we did.
But I was very protective of my grandmother at that time because I felt that she was very vulnerable. She was in a wheelchair. She was 82.
Yeah.
She was somewhere, she had
82, 83, something like that.
So I felt that she was very vulnerable. And even with all the security and everything, as professional and perfectionistic as the White House is, I was still very protective of her. And I was like, my grandmother, stay away.
Oh,
great.
And then another funny thing was one of the people who was supposed to receive an award, which did posthumously, is I don't know if when before he died, if they still did it, but in the Sunday Times, in the front of the Times, there would always be a cartoon of whatever show was going on, and somewhere within the cartoon you had to look for this name Nina.
Do you know who Al Hirschfeld is? Do you know who I'm asking? Do you know who he is or was?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
No, no.
That's who she's talking about.
That's what I was going to say. He was, I don't know when he started it, but I became aware of it in the 50s because where's the Nina? Where's the Nina? Where's
So,
the Nina?
hold on. So she doesn't know who he is. So she needs the background of who he was.
Right, but I said,
Yeah.
He was a caricaturist for actors. He did
Okay.
caricatures of actors. And he would do these drawings, and in the drawings he would write his daughter's name, Nina.
Okay.
You have to fill them in on the rest
you see,
so that she knows who you're talking about, because she doesn't know.
you see, this
This happens all the time.
That's why I always say if I'm being interviewed, because I jump all over the place, which of course makes her crazy. So, but the point to all of this was that Mr. Hirschfeld was apparently very excited about coming down, about getting this award, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he died the week before we were all supposed to go down. So his wife came down and received the award posthumously. So Teresa, we're in the White House, and Teresa's pushing my mother down this long corridor, and there's a picture of a Hirschfeld on the side. And my father, Jose Ferrer, when
It was of him.
you're ruining the story. My father received the very first National Endowment Award when Ronald Reagan was. So we're going down, and I said, there's this Hirschfeld on the side. I'm going, shoot, that looks like my dad. And I went over, and it was a caricature of a very funny play that he did, which did not get much notoriety, which was a shame. And Mom and Teresa had gone by, and I felt like saying, hey, Mom, you didn't say hello to your husband. You know, so here my dad was here, and here's my mom about to get an award, and Mr. Hirschfeld's widow. I mean, 3 degrees of separation, as it were.
So this is an idea, to give you an idea of who Al Hirschfeld was. This is one that he did of my grandmother.
Isn't he?
So if you look at the bottom of her dress, you can kind of make out a very exaggerated long N-I-N-A. So that's what she's been talking about. And he had died a week before, so his widow came and received the award as well.
The award, right.
You know, so.
All this.
When she was alive, she went to Hollywood and she was on the red carpet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And somebody called her a legend. And she said, legends are dead. I'm not a legend. And I was like, okay.
Now we can call her legend.
Not gonna argue with her. Not gonna argue.
As Teresa loved to say, my mother was a force.
She was.
Total force.
She was. You've asked about who Uta was.
Yes.
And for Uta Uta was Uta. Uta was Uta Hagen. She was a force, and she was driven. And I think she, even though I shared a lot of personal moments with her growing up, she was still Uta Hagen. I would call her in German, I would call her Omi or Oma, but I knew who she was. She was Uta Hagen. She was passionate, she was a force, and she was driven. And that was with acting, that was with food because she wrote a cookbook, that was with her memoir because she wrote a memoir. She was a force, and there was no differentiation between the person versus the actor. She was that person, and she expected and she demanded, and she generally received, but she was a force, and that is a gift for us to be a part of, but it is also hard to be a part of. It's just hard.
And my father, on the other hand, he never forgot where he came from. He was always accessible. Years ago, there was
well, she was too.
Not as much as your grandfather. Not as much as your grandfather.
When Herbert died, here's a story that not many people know. But when Herbert died, there was a theater, they rented, I don't know, a theater was donated on Broadway for his memorial, and somebody came up and said, Miss Hagen.
Booth Theater.
Okay, Miss Hagen, can I take your picture? And she obliged. And then he said, can I take another one? And she's like, my husband just died. So she was accessible. She was accessible, maybe not as much as Grandpa was,
Right.
but she was accessible.
Well,
I mean, you have to be accessible to some extent because you live in New York City.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying.
You walk down the streets with your dog.
Yeah, but
Or she did.
an example that I always like to, if you compare. Well, first of all, she was doing a show at Circle in the Square, and it was a matinee, and came up the stairs, and the little blue-haired ladies are there, and she signed the autograph, and they wanted 3 minutes, 2 minutes, just to, rub hands and talk. No, I'm sorry, I have to eat, I have to lay down. I'm going, no, okay. My father, on the other hand, had been, I think he was doing a play which was just on television again this afternoon, which he got an Oscar for, called Cyrano de Bergerac, and this was in Philadelphia. There was a man who became a producer by the name of Hal
Holbrook.
No, Holbrook is the actor. Hal, I can't think of his last name. Anyway, the point to it is that this man had come to see Cyrano and waited at the stage door and says to this doorman, is this where Mr. Ferrer comes out? And he said, yes. So he waited and waited and waited and waited. Finally, my father comes out and he signs the autograph, and they talked for a couple of minutes, and my father says, would you like to walk me to my hotel? He said, oh, I would love it. And they walked and talked for about 5 or 7 minutes. And my dad said, this is where I'm staying. Thank you. My mother would never do that. That's all I'd say.
She's also a woman. You have to take that into consideration.
I'm sorry. It's all I'm saying is
you wouldn't let somebody do that. I wouldn't let somebody do that.
Famous actors are also humans, right?
I'm not denying that.
They don't, exactly. They have their personal life. They have to have their boundaries, especially public people. They have to have set their boundaries precisely. So, because people tend to take an advantage. And
I agree 100%, but and I think Meryl Streep, from what I gather, from what I hear, is like there are celebrities out there who are very much like my dad.
She wasn't one of them.
That's what I'm just saying. That's the difference between your grandmother and your grandfather. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That was
she
my.
Said it.
That was the difference.
That
was what I found the difference between them. She may have been accessible. She wasn't nearly as accessible as my father was.
Okay.
What's the story that you tell about Daddy walking down the street with the money?
This is not about Grandpa.
But
this is about Uta.
But it's about his accessibility. It's about.
I'd love to hear it.
If you like to.
This was
my grandpa. They lived on the Upper West Side, and there was they were going. Him and my Stella, his widow, were going to an event, and somebody said the homeless guy was coming up and said, "Excuse me, can you spare some change?" And my grandpa. They were all dressed to the nine, tux and gorgeous, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't." And he said, "Sir, can you spare some change?" He said, "I'm sorry, I can't." And they're getting ready to go into the event. And he said, "Mr. Jose Ferrer, can you spare some change?" And my grandpa looked at me and goes, "You got me." And then he gave me $5 or something.
Yeah.
That's
but as I say, the difference between him and my mother, Mom was always like this, and Daddy was always accessible. And that's what I admired about him. And as Teresa said a few days ago, she always felt Grandpa was Grandpa and not an actor.
Yeah, which is what I said. My grandmother was Uta Hagen across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But that kept her at a level, I think, that kept her career at the space that she wanted it to be, maybe. I grew up seeing her shows, more than once. I would see the same show, but I grew up seeing the shows and not being in the whole embrace of it, which was fine. But people knew who she was. If you were an actor, they knew who she was. And yeah, she was Uta Hagen.
She was Uta Hagen on stage and at home.
The respect of the craft, even though she didn't name it that, but the respect to give to, I guess you are the individual are the tool, and to give that respect for what you are bringing to the table, whether it's, your prop, your script, whatever it is.
Would you, Teresa, I know you have Uta's books at home. Could you show us here some of her books?
So
because some of them are old edition and it's not possible to buy them anymore, right?
Correct. So this is Respect for Acting. This is the original one. This was published in 1973, and this is coming up on the 50th anniversary. And it's the expanded edition that's coming up, but it will not be this cover.
But this cover will be inside the book.
This, as everybody knows, challenge for the actor.
Right? I have one. Yes, of course.
So this is the other acting book. This is Uta Hagen's love for cooking. So this is her here in her kitchen, in her apartment on McDougal and
Washington Square.
And I actually remember this, but this book is not in print anymore. But occasionally, on our channel we have videos of my mother and I making some of the recipes in this book. So if anybody has any questions and wants the recipes that we've made, they can message me.
Oh, wonderful!
Happy to share those.
And also, I think once in a while, love of cooking does come up on Amazon. It's pricey, but
it's not in print.
Right, but
that's sold through other people.
Right.
That's not. It's.
Oh, I see.
That's a third party. We don't have any
used books.
Correct. We don't have any association with that. The book is no longer in print. This is sources. So this is the original one. This is her memoir. And my mother talked about her doing the seagull. Let's see if I can put this. This is her in the seagull. She's right there.
Nina, played Nina.
Hold on. I just want to see something.
Hold on. This is the back of the book. And again, this is a memoir.
And Teresa, is it you on the picture with your grandmother?
Yeah, that's me on the back as a little person. Much younger. And then you look, this is the current one of sources. So the one that I just showed is also no longer in print. This is the current one. And on the back, it's my mother as a little girl with my grandmother and her aunt.
Oh, Letty, it's you. It's lovely. I never saw pictures of Letty as a child.
That's my mom as a little girl.
There's about 3 or 4 there, I think.
And then, so this is the current one of sources. And the one that my mom is holding is the original, which is also no longer in print.
What I was wanting to look at for those people.
Hold on.
I found it.
I know. This one?
No, in here.
I showed this one.
I know, but there's somebody in there that I want to mention.
Okay, so she's talking about the seagull picture.
There, for people that like seeing the old films, like with excuse me, Lauren Bacall, who was she married to?
Humphrey Bogart.
Thank you. The old black and white films with Humphrey Bogart and his murder mysteries. There was a very a heavy man, which was very well known for those films, by the name of Sidney Greenstreet. One day I was looking at the book and I went, oh my God, she knew Sidney Greenstreet. and the people that she went, and I just knew him. I never met the man. I just knew him from seeing, the old black and white films, and I went, oh my Lord, how fabulous.
But that's part of what I said before, right? For her, this was normal. And I had surgery and years ago, and my grandmother came to the hospital and she said, I'll be back tomorrow. What do you want me to bring? And I said, a Dr. Pepper and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And she came back the next day and she said, guess what I brought? And I said, a Dr. Pepper and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And she said, no. And it was Charles Nelson Riley.
Oh.
So my hospital bed, and I had known him, right, for years. My hospital bed was closer to the door, and so the nurses came in to the hospital bed closer to the window, and were taking care of, in air quotes, taking care of the girl who was in that bed, but turning around and looking towards my direction because Charlie was there, and they were, touching her and saying, how do you feel? How do you feel? But they're looking at my bed, looking at him. So this was normal. And this was completely.
He was a superstar at that time.
Yeah. This was normal.
Prior to that, would come in and deal with Teresa, barely give this other kid the time of day. So they're coming in and dealing with this other kid and looking at Teresa and Charlie. Oh,
but this was, like, it was more so normal for my mom. But this is how, how she grew up and how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, and he was Charlie, and Charlie did a famous skit. You know who Ben Stiller is?
He might know, yes.
Okay, so his parents apparently met in my grandmother's class.
Oh, wow.
So like Ann Mira and Jerry Stiller, we knew them for years. We knew them, and it was like, hey, how are you? And Elliot, what's his name? Elliot, you know who I'm talking about. He's been in, I think he was in The Godfather. No. He's been in tons of films. Super nice guy.
Oh, Scott Ellis?
No, that was Broadway. That was Elephant Man. Okay. Eli Wallach. That's it. Eli Wallach. Totally normal, right? This guy is like Broadway, Hollywood, everything. And it was like, oh, hey, it's Eli. Like, how are you? That was normal. That was completely normal definitely for my mother and for myself as well. It was just like, we get to see these people, and it was normal.
And if you want to see something funny, and I think it's on YouTube, I'm not sure. Charlie had done a one-man show, and they put this excerpt in it where Charlie does a thing about studying at the studio with my mom. Mm-hmm. And how she took attendance, and everybody who sees it just roars with laughter. So if you want to know about, that's something you might.
He nailed it.
Sure.
He nailed it. I mean, even checking off the names, he nailed it. But that was normal. Charles Nelson Riley, Eli Wallach, his wife, whose name I don't know.
Ann Jackson.
Ann Jackson, Ann Mira, Jerry Stiller, like
big names.
Yeah, and even the
Hollywood.
My mom knows Victor Garber.
Oh wow!
Zach, but you. But
but like Victor Garber is, who he is.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
How are you? it's David Hyde Pierce. He knows who my mom is,
and he knows who you are too.
But she grew up in it, and I'm the next generation, so it became my norm as well. But that was normal, So it's like when my grandmother got the National Endowment of the Arts, it was, I forgot.
Smokey?
Yeah, Smokey Robinson was there. And like, we're just at the table eating chocolates because it's normal. And he was a huge singer in the 60s. But like you can be in a room with my grandmother with all these names, and they were just all sitting there having drinks, eating, doing whatever, and it was normal. And it was like, so that's Charlie. It's Charles Nelson Riley. No, that's Charlie.
Mm. And speaking about HB Studio, so and Uta Hagen as a teacher, as an acting teacher. So what could you tell about her technique? Because I know she developed a unique technique, acting technique, and taught her students, and I'm one of the, exactly.
It's all here.
The ones,
Letty, in a couple of words, what do you feel about her technique? Because I have my opinion and I just, but.
well, I know Lorraine Sarabian, who both Elena and I study with, is a big pro challenge for the actor. One time, at one point, somebody was studying with Mom, and she gave she was doing an exercise from this, and halfway through the exercise, my mother stops it and says, "Excuse me, you didn't read the book." "Yes, I did." "No, you didn't." "Yes, I did." "Well, if you did, you couldn't possibly be doing what you're doing." So the student gets the book and goes, "I am," and goes like this, right? Shows her chapter, what? And shows her chapter and verse, right? And she goes, "Look here." So my mother looks and goes, "Oh." So challenge came about because this woman was not doing what my mother felt it should be. Now, the point to all of this is, in respect for acting, it's called, the first exercise is called basic object exercise. So you deal with 3 or 4 objects, this, that, and the other. And when she would see what she wanted to see, she'd stop her or stop the student and say, "Okay, what can you tell me?" She goes around, she starts rewriting all of the exercises. Case in point, basic object exercise and challenge for the actor is called destination. It is the exact same object. It's the exact same exercise, excuse me, except you are coming in from somewhere. You deal with your 3 or 4 objects and you exit. It's the exact same exercise. So the point to all of this is that when she was in Canada and I went up to see her, she said, because I'm jumping again, so please forgive me. When Challenge came out, the royalties for Respect today, even in this day and age, the royalty checks are still higher for Respect than they are for Challenge. Mom said, Respect is a bunch of crap. So she said, if I were to continue to have taught and wrote a 3rd book, I would say Challenge is a bunch of crap. This is much better. The point being that, as in life, what's good today may not have been good yesterday, or what will be good tomorrow may be not good today, because as in life, we are always changing. We are always revolving. It's like, as Lorraine says in class, each performance should, even though you're doing the same thing, in each performance, something should be different, because otherwise it becomes mundane, it becomes tiring, and the person who pays, $200 or $300 for a ticket doesn't give a turkey, and I'm being polite, that you've been doing it 200 performances. For them, it's an opening night. So how do you keep that same play that you've been doing 200 times? How do you keep that fresh so that will excite the new audience each night? And yes, as I say, Challenge is the 2 books, and David Hyde Pierce keeps both books. The 2 books complement each other. There may be something in Respect that's not in Challenge. There may be something in Challenge that's not in Respect.
That's why you get both.
Yeah.
That's right.
Her technique, as it were, is a tool. It's like you have a toolbox where you've got you've got the screwdriver, and you've got the wrench, and you've got the hammer, and you've got the this and the that. When she was doing Virginia Woolf, she did not need to explore what university life was, being married to a university professor was like, because my grandfather taught at Madison, Wisconsin University. So she understood all of that. If you're doing a play and there's something you don't understand, go to the toolbox and go through and something in the toolbox may say, "Oh, this can fit here." And it was like years ago, I was in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I said the lines and did the business. So everybody thought that I knew what I was talking about. One day I made an entrance, and something was slightly different. And and the line all of a sudden came out, "Has Bottom come home?" And all of a sudden that line, after playing it, 5 performances, the light bulb went off. So we're always changing, as Lorraine would say.
Yeah, sometimes you need 2 toolboxes.
Yes.
I highly suggest both books. I highly suggest, because I read both, and definitely they complement, as you mentioned, Letty, they complement each other. They do not replace each other, but one another, but they complement each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On this note, yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, before we get away from anything, you wanted me to, you and I had been talking about this because of everything that's going on in Russia and your family and stuff.
Yes, I wanted to ask about that story, if you want to share.
And I said, well, my mother was married and we went into war, and all of a sudden somebody was knocking at the door and said, "We're here to arrest you." And she said, "What are you talking about?" They said, "You're German." And she said, "Like you, I'm an American citizen." They said, "We don't care, you're German." My mother was almost put in an internment camp. I don't know who the Sam Hill, if it was on my mother's side or my dad's side, but somebody knew somebody that because she was born in Germany, this close to being put in, and there was something on the Academy Award, the Asian guy who got the award, he said he had been put in an internment camp. Didn't matter that his family had become American. He was put in the camp because he was Japanese or whatever. Same kind of thing. And that's why I was with whatever you're going through. That's why I said, it never hurts to try to find somebody, if you know somebody, to try to avoid these problems.
Yeah, but it just tells us how imperfect world we live in.
Exactly.
And doesn't matter. Sometimes you may be a famous actress and you still can face the same troubles as other ordinary people. We are not insured from this political thing, unfortunately.
It was. She said her if she was getting ready to travel, she said the nightmare she always had was that she was able to leave the country, but she couldn't get back in. And where's her passport? Did she lose her passport? She said this is the nightmare she always had, and something that I believe her. Something that I just find so hard to understand. But that's that was her experience with being German born, even though she became an American citizen
after the the World War II. Just want to point this out, that she almost was arrested right after the war ended up because she was German. So in America they wanted to arrest her, but she was that close, and it didn't happen, thank God.
And also, she and my father were blacklisted because when she did Othello with the black actor that I was talking about earlier by the name of Paul Robeson, Paul was very socialistic. My parents were very socialistic. Paul, I don't know if I may have mentioned this earlier, and if I did, jump me up. When at one point he had his passport taken away, he was not allowed back in the country. With time, all of that happened, and he came back. And there was a video being shown of him in the HB Theater. And what I found interesting, which I did not know, was that Paul had served. I don't know if he must have served. He served either in World War I or World War II. I don't remember. But in the video, he said, if a black person was in the army today, and this was in 75, I believe he died in 76 or 77. If a black person wrote me and said, "I need help," I will drop everything I am doing and get on the next train or the next plane and go to those people to help them. So everything that Dr. Mandela and Dr. King and Jesse Jackson and all these people who are wonderful civil rights movements people, Paul was doing back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And because my parents were associated with him and had done Othello with him, they,
Were
they
blacklisted.
were being blamed for being communistic. They were socialistic. And another story that Teresa has heard me tell was they were on tour with Othello, and they checked into this hotel, and they went to the concierge, and the concierge said, "Oh, we have your suite ready, Mr. Ferrer." And my father said, "Well, what about Paul?" "No, he can't stay here." "Excuse me, then maybe we'll go to another hotel." He said, "Well, no, he can stay here if you want. He can sleep in the linen closet."
Wow.
And then with pressure and whatever, they finally gave Paul a room. But all because Paul was for human rights, which now all of a sudden is like a big, black people and this and that and the other. It's like, excuse me, it was going on back then. What do you think?
I don't have an opinion. I wasn't around.
Oh, all right. I know when I get on my soapbox at Paul, sometimes she says, "Mom, we've heard this." And I, okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful conversation in memory of Uta Hagen, in memory of her work and contribution. I'm very grateful for this. And I'd like to ask you, ladies, please share the website, social media links. I know you did this in the beginning, but it's good to repeat briefly. And also I will include all those links in the final frame to this video.
So the website is utahagen.com, just like her name, UTAHAGEN.com. On Instagram, it is the Uta Hagen family, as well as the handle is the same for TikTok. And then we have some posted videos on YouTube. It's called Uta Hagen's Love for Cooking. And that's where my mother and I are making some of our favorite recipes and telling stories of eating some of the things that my grandmother made and enjoying them at her house in Montauk or when she would have parties, and just what we remember with those recipes and making them, the events that happen with the food, basically. But Instagram is the most, we're the most accessible. So it's Uta, UTAHAGEN. I think it's just that.
And also it's you, Teresa, who's answering on the on Instagram on messages. So
yeah,
the direct way to reach out to you.
Yeah, I would be, if you have any questions about it, it's Uta Hagen family. If anybody has any questions, feel free at any time to send me a DM and I will answer them as quickly as possible.
The one thing I do want to say, which Lorraine says all the time, and my mother said also, is that even though Lorraine is continuing what my mother teaches, or taught, I should say, we can never stop learning. The minute you stop learning and stop questioning things, you become dead. It's like bleh. And that was my mother's philosophy also, that you never stop learning. Always, I'm not a great reader, but I do pick up something, and I try to read and I try to learn. And even if I don't learn from reading, I learn from listening to other people. And I'm always talking to other people, trying to get information to expand my knowledge, because at times, because of being a poor reader, and I am aware of this, I don't want to stop learning. I always question things. And when Teresa and I are at night listening to or watching CNN or Channel 13, she knows more things than I do. So I'm constantly saying, okay, what is this? But what about this? Doesn't this? No, yes, it is. But then there's also this. And that compensates my reading disability. Yeah. So just tell me.
My grandmother would, every Sunday, she was an avid learner, like reading books, Sunday crossword puzzles in Montauk. It was, she would gain knowledge wherever she could. And when you do the crossword puzzles, you have to use the other side of your brain. So that became quite a challenge.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was her philosophy to the core. Never stop learning, whatever you're doing, whatever it is. She gardening, she had her house in Montauk. She was a gardener. The cookbook, she learned how to grow her own.
More dirt.
Right. And she learned how to grow her own vegetables.
That line's familiar, right?
Exactly.
Like the dirt. Have you ever gotten your hands in dirt?
Exactly. Your line from the trip from
Elena.
Bountiful, the trip to Bountiful.
Yeah.
Yes, we did with Letty just recently. She was my partner. And this is what I admire about your family. Letty, Teresa, Uta Hagen. You're so curious about new things. You ask questions. It's always, your conversation with you is always something new, something interesting. And that's what I think it's your family thing.
It's in our DNA.
In DNA, exactly.
We did a interview a while back, and the person that we were doing it with brought his students, and so we were the students did scenes for us, and then wanted us to critique the scenes. So, like I said, I've never read my grandmother's books, right? But one of the students, she's sitting there, she's got her cell phone, she's waiting for her friend, she pulls out a piece of paper out of her pocket, and then we're critiquing the scene. And my mom has studied at the studio, so she's been around the block way more than I have. But we were talking about it, and I said to the girl, I said, well, I want to know what the piece of paper says. What does the piece of paper say? Is there a phone number on there? Is there a name on there? What's the conversation in the text? And my mom said that I don't know which book it is, but that's part of the lessons in my grandmother's books, right? But to me, that comes naturally. Like, I want to know, what's your relationship to that piece of paper? So her object was this little piece of paper. And I said, well, what is the relationship to that? The person that you're waiting for, did they write something on that piece of paper? And if they did, what did it say? And how are you going to react to it? And that's in my DNA. I didn't read the books.
And I went, see, she says, but she's saying the same thing that my mom said.
Exactly.
So it's just, we literally grew up with it. So the curious never stops. It just never stops.
Yeah, so great.
And also, Teresa's a trainer, and she's always looking at new.
It's not relevant.
It is.
Why not? Everything related to Uta Hagen is relevant, but as much as you can comfortable.
The thing of wanting to learn, wanting to find new techniques, wanting to find new things. This is part of my mom, and it's part of her. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today. This is a great afternoon talking about Uta Hagen, about her 50th anniversary of the book. And I feel honored, so honored to share this afternoon, this hour with you, her daughter and granddaughter. And let's keep her the memories about Uta and her contribution into acting for upcoming generations.
Yeah.
It's worth it. And
well, thank you for giving us this opportunity, for us to talk about her, because it's her books, I know, are the Bible for some people, but for us to be able to share our stories, hopefully, gives a different enlightenment into the world of Uta Hagen. And it's a pleasure and an honor for us to be able to share the good, the hard, and the funny.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.